early 1300s, a traveler could walk from the Danube River in Europe to the Pacific Ocean in Asia under a single authority. This was the Pax Mongolica. It was a period of forced peace over the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Yet this colossal empire began in poverty and blood on the freezing plains of Mongolia. In the late 12th century, the nomadic Mongol tribes were fractured. They were trapped in an endless cycle of blood feuds, raids, and shifting alliances. Out of this chaos emerged a man named Temujin. When Temujin was a boy, rival Tatars poisoned his father. His tribe then abandoned his family, leaving them to eat roots and rodents to survive. Temujin was later captured and enslaved by a rival clan. He wore a heavy wooden stock around his neck. He escaped against all odds. Temujin did not seek simple survival. He sought total unification. He broke traditional tribal rules. He promoted men based on merit and loyalty rather than noble birth. He executed the aristocrats of defeated tribes and integrated the common warriors into his own army. By 1206, he defeated every rival clan on the steppe. The nomadic chiefs gathered at a grand council called a culture.The. There they proclaimed Temujin the supreme leader of the unified Mongol nation. They gave him a new title, Genghis Khan, meaning the universal ruler. Genghis Khan turned his eyes outward. The nomadic world was too small for his ambitions. To keep his newly unified warriors from fighting each other, he pointed them toward the wealthy, sedentary civilizations surrounding them. The Mongol army was a perfectly engineered terror machine. At its core was a strict decimal system. Warriors were divided into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000. The largest unit was called a tumen. If one soldier fled in battle, his entire unit of 10 was executed. This created unbreakable bonds of battlefield discipline. Every Mongol soldier was a mounted archer. They rode small, tough steppe ponies, often switching between 5 or 6 horses during a campaign to keep them fresh. They could ride up to 100 miles in a single day, a speed that baffled their enemies. Their primary weapon was the composite bow. Made of wood, horn, and sinew, it had a draw weight of up to 160 pounds and could pierce armor at over 200 yards. Mongol archers learned to release their arrows at the exact moment their horses' hooves left the ground, ensuring perfect stability. But their greatest weapon was psychological warfare. When Genghis Khan besieged a city, he offered a choice: surrender and pay tribute, or resist and perish. If a city resisted, the Mongols massacred the entire population, sparing only artisans and engineers. They piled human skulls outside the city walls as warnings. The terrifying news traveled ahead of the army. Many cities surrendered without firing a single arrow. The Mongol expansion happened with terrifying speed across multiple fronts. First came northern China. The Mongols faced the massive stone walls of the Jin dynasty. Nomads could not breach these walls, so Genghis Khan adapted. He captured Chinese engineers and forced them to build catapults, trebuchets, and battering rams. The Mongols turned Chinese technology against China itself, eventually capturing Beijing in 1215. Next, the empire expanded westward. In 1218, Genghis Khan sent a peaceful trade caravan to the Khwarezmian Empire, located in modern-day Iran and Central Asia. The local governor executed the merchants and shaved the beards of the Khan's ambassadors. This was a fatal mistake. Genghis Khan unleashed the full fury of his army. Rich Silk Road cities like Bukhara, Samarkand, and Nishapur were completely erased from the earth. Irrigation networks were destroyed, fields were salted, and millions of people were killed. The Khwarezmian Empire vanished from history. Genghis Khan died in 1227, but the empire did not stop. His sons and grandsons pushed the borders even further. To the west, Batu Khan led the Golden Horde. They conquered the Russian principalities, burned Kiev to the ground, and smashed European knights at the Battle of Mohyl in Hungary and the Battle of Legnica in Poland. Western Europe was saved from total conquest only by a sudden stroke of fate. The great Khan Ugadai died in Mongolia, forcing the Mongol generals to halt their advance and return home to elect a new leader. By the mid-13th century, the Mongol Empire reached its peak under Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis. Kublai completed the conquest of southern China, crushing the Song dynasty and establishing the Yuan dynasty. The Mongol Empire now stretched from the Sea of Japan to the gates of Vienna. With total control over Eurasia, the Mongols established the Yam system. This was the world's first transcontinental postal network. Relay stations were placed every 25 to 30 miles along trade routes, stocked with fresh horses and food. Messengers wore bells to alert stations of their approach, allowing them to pass messages across thousands of miles in days. This infrastructure secured the Silk Road. For the first time in centuries, trade flourished without the fear of bandits. Merchants, ideas, religions, and technologies flowed freely between East and West. Gunpowder, papermaking, and printing moved from China to Europe. Persian medicine and astronomy flowed into China. It was during this era that the Venetian merchant Marco Polo traveled safely to the court of Kublai Khan, marveling at the wealth and efficiency of the Mongol administration. An empire won on horseback cannot be governed on horseback. The Mongol Empire grew too large for a single ruler to control. Cultural differences began to tear it apart. The Mongol rulers in Persia and Russia converted to Islam, while those in China adopted Buddhist and Confucian ideals. Following the death of Genghis Khan in 1259, civil war erupted. The empire permanently fractured into 4 independent realms, known as the 4 Khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China and Mongolia, the Ilkhanate in Persia and the Middle East, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, the Golden Horde in Russia. By the mid-14th century, the Black Death swept along the Mongol-secured trade routes, devastating populations and destabilizing governments. One by one, the Khanates collapsed. In 1368, the Ming dynasty overthrew the Yuan dynasty, driving the Mongols back to their northern plains. The Mongol Empire lasted less than 2 centuries, but it reshaped the world forever. They destroyed ancient kingdoms, redrew the borders of Asia and Eastern Europe, and connected the Eastern and Western hemispheres for the first time. They left a legacy of terror and destruction, but also a legacy of global integration that laid the foundation for the modern interconnected world. Genghis Khan and his descendants left behind a world completely transformed by the storm from the steppes.